The year is 2025. The global economy is still recovering from the shocks of the early 2020s, then a bombshell. US President Donald Trump, back in the Oval Office, imposes a 25% tariff on nearly all Canadian imports. This aggressive move sends shockwaves through markets and businesses on both sides of the border. The Canadian dollar plummets. Uncertainty grips industries heavily reliant on trade with the US. The question on everyone's mind: how will Canada respond? Canada chose defiance. The government swiftly announced retaliatory tariffs on a range of American goods, carefully chosen for their political and economic impact. The message was clear: Canada would not be bullied. This marked a dramatic shift in Canadian foreign policy. No longer content with quiet diplomacy, Canada took a bold and aggressive stance. The era of polite deference was over. But Canada's counterattack went far beyond government action. Across the country, a wave of grassroots resistance was building. From individual consumers to small businesses, Canadians were taking a stand against Trump's tariffs. A boycott of American products gained momentum. People were choosing Canadian alternatives, even if it meant paying a bit more. The sentiment was clear: economic independence was worth the price. Supermarket shelves, once stocked with familiar American brands, began to feature more Canadian products. Local farmers markets saw a surge in customers seeking out Canadian-grown produce. From maple syrup to craft beer, consumers were making a conscious effort to support Canadian businesses. The message resonated: buy Canadian, support your own. This shift in consumer behavior was not driven solely by patriotism. The tariffs had made American goods significantly more expensive, making Canadian alternatives more attractive. But it was more than just price. There was a sense of solidarity, a shared belief that standing up to Trump's protectionism was a matter of national pride. The boycott became a symbol of Canadian resistance. In Toronto, a small family-owned pizzeria called Grams became an unlikely symbol of this economic resistance. When the tariffs hit, the owner, a first-generation Canadian whose parents had immigrated from Italy, was faced with a dilemma. The price of pepperoni, a key ingredient in his signature pizza, had skyrocketed due to the tariffs. Should he raise prices, absorb the cost, or find another solution? The stakes were high, as the pizzeria was not just a business, but a family legacy. His decision made headlines. He would replace American pepperoni with a Canadian-made alternative. It wasn't easy. The taste was slightly different, and it took time to find a supplier who could meet his needs. The owner spent countless hours testing different products, ensuring that the quality of his pizzas remained top-notch. But for the owner of Grams, it was about more than just pizza. It was about taking a stand. He wanted to show that small businesses could adapt and thrive even in the face of economic adversity. "We're Canadian," he told reporters. "We don't back down from a challenge." His words echoed a sentiment of resilience and determination that many Canadians felt during these tough times. His story resonated with Canadians across the country, a small business owner taking on a giant. The community rallied behind him, showing their support by frequenting his pizzeria and spreading the word. Grams became a symbol of local pride and perseverance, proving that even the smallest voices can make a big impact. Section 5. A new North American trade war. The stakes are high. As tensions rise between the neighboring countries, the economic landscape is becoming increasingly volatile. Businesses on both sides of the border are bracing for impact, uncertain of what the future holds. Grams Pizza was just one example of the wider economic battle playing out. Small businesses like Grams are the backbone of the economy, and they are feeling the pressure. Owners are worried about rising costs and the potential for decreased consumer spending. The trade war, as it was quickly dubbed, had far-reaching implications. It wasn't just about tariffs, it was about the ripple effects throughout the global economy. International trade shipments were delayed, and businesses worldwide were forced to rethink their strategies. Canada and the US shared the world's largest bilateral trading relationship, with billions of dollars in goods and services flowing across the border each day. This intricate web of trade was now under threat, causing anxiety among businesses that relied on this steady flow. The tariffs threatened to disrupt supply chains, increase costs for businesses and consumers, and damage the economies of both countries. Empty store shelves and increased prices became a common sight. affecting everyday life for millions of people. The stakes were particularly high for Canada. With its economy heavily intertwined with that of the US, any disruption could have severe consequences. Canadian citizens and businesses alike were on edge, watching the developments closely. The Canadian economy was heavily reliant on trade with the US, its largest trading partner by far. Exports to the US accounted for a significant portion of Canada's GDP, making the country particularly vulnerable to any trade disruptions. The tariffs had the potential to push Canada into recession. The economic downturn could lead to widespread business closures, job losses, and a decrease in the standard of living for many Canadians. The Trudeau government faced mounting pressure to resolve the dispute, but negotiations with the unpredictable Trump administration proved difficult. The political tension added another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. A sense of uncertainty hung over the country. Canadians were left wondering what the future would hold as the trade war showed no signs of abating. The gloomy skies over the Canadian countryside mirrored the mood of a nation on edge. Faced with this challenge, Canada began to diversify its trading partners. The government actively pursued trade deals with the European Union, China, and other countries in Asia and Latin America. The goal was to reduce Canada's dependence on the US market and strengthen its position in the global economy. This diversification strategy was not without its challenges. Building new trade relationships took time and effort. There were cultural differences to navigate and logistical hurdles to overcome. Yet Canada pressed on, recognizing that a multipolar world demanded a more nuanced approach to trade. The days of relying solely on the US market were over. Canada needed to be more agile, more adaptable, and more globally connected. The trade war, while painful, had forced Canada to confront its economic vulnerabilities and seek out new opportunities. Meanwhile, the tariffs were also having an impact on the US economy. American businesses that relied on Canadian suppliers faced higher costs and supply chain disruptions. Consumers saw prices rise on a range of goods, from automobiles to lumber. The tariffs, ironically, were hurting the very people they were supposed to protect: American workers and businesses. Economists warned that the tariffs could lead to job losses and slower economic growth in the United States. Some argued that the tariffs were counterproductive, damaging the US economy more than they were hurting Canada. The trade war had become a game of chicken, with neither side willing to back down, even as the costs mounted. As the trade war dragged on, Canada's economy found itself at a crossroads. The tariffs had undoubtedly had a negative impact, slowing economic growth and creating uncertainty for businesses and consumers. Yet, the crisis had also spurred a wave of innovation and entrepreneurship. Canadian businesses forced to adapt were finding new markets, developing new products, and embracing new technologies. The government, too, was investing in innovation and infrastructure, seeking to build a more resilient and competitive economy. The focus was on sectors with high growth potential, such as clean technology, artificial intelligence, and life sciences. The goal was to create a more diversified and knowledge-based economy, less reliant on traditional industries like manufacturing and natural resources. The impact of the trade war extended far beyond economics. It wasn't just about numbers and trade deficits, it was about the very fabric of international relationships. The ripple effects were felt in boardrooms, on factory floors, and in the daily lives of ordinary citizens. It strained the long-standing friendship between Canada and the United States, eroding trust and testing the bonds of the bilateral relationship. Decades of cooperation and mutual understanding were suddenly under scrutiny as both nations grappled with the new reality. The tariffs had become a symbol of the growing divide between the two countries, not just on trade, but on a range of issues, from climate change to immigration. Public sentiment was shifting and protest became a common sight, reflecting the broader discontent. The trade war was a wake-up call for Canada, a stark reminder that even the closest of allies could become economic rivals. It prompted intense debates in the halls of Parliament and among policymakers who had to navigate this new landscape with caution and foresight. It forced Canada to re-evaluate its place in the world, to assert its independence, and to chart a new course for the future. Industries across the nation began to innovate and adapt, seeking new markets and opportunities to reduce reliance on traditional partners. The road ahead would be challenging, but Canada had faced adversity before. From historical moments of resilience during wartime to rebuilding after natural disasters, the Canadian spirit had always been one of perseverance and strength. And like the small pizza shop owner in Toronto, Canadians were ready to face it head-on with determination and resilience. The collective effort of individuals, communities and leaders would be crucial in navigating this uncertain future, proving once again that unity and hard work could overcome even the toughest challenges.